Unmuted.
The special meeting of the City of Socorro City Council is set to begin. First and foremost, the City of Socorro would like to thank everyone and ask for your patience during this difficult time we have been presented with. Everyone, please remember to silence any electronics to avoid sound interruption. No disruptive behavior or outbursts will be tolerated, and violators are subject to call disconnection and possible prosecution. In accordance with Section 418.016 of the Texas Government Code and by order of the Office of the Governor issued March 16, 2020, the City Council of the City of Socorro will broadcast a special meeting scheduled today, Thursday, July 16, 2020 at 4 p.m. from City Hall chambers located at 860 Rio Vista Road, Socorro, Texas, via telephone conference and live stream in order to advance the public health goal and practice social distancing to slow the spread of the coronavirus COVID-19. The public that has signed up and any presenters will be called upon by the presiding officer during the meeting to speak during the public comment or their agenda item during the meeting following Government Code 551.042. La reunión especial del Concilio de la Ciudad de Socorro está por empezar. Primeramente queremos darle las gracias y pedimos su paciencia durante estos momentos críticos que enfrentamos. Favor de poner en silencio todo equipo electrónico para evitar interrupción de sonido. No se va a tolerar ningún tipo de comportamiento perjudicial o revoltoso a quien no siga estas reglas. Su llamada será desconectada y puede ser infraccionado. De acuerdo con sección 418.016 del Código del Gobierno y de Texas y por orden de la Oficina del Gobernador, anunciada el 16 de marzo de 2020, el Concilio de la Ciudad de Socorro transmitirá la reunión especial hoy, 16 de julio de 2020 a las 4 p.m. desde la sala del Concilio localizada en 860 Rio Vista Road, Socorro, Texas, por medio del teléfono y será transmitida en vivo para tomar medidas preventivas para prevenir la propagación de la enfermedad del virus corona COVID-19 y los demás por la seguridad del público. El público y los presentadores serán anunciados por el oficial conduciendo la reunión para poder hablar durante la sección de comentario público o después de la discusión del artículo de la agenda por cual se apuntaron siguiendo las reglas del gobierno 551.042.
Mr. Nevares, would you please call the meeting to order?
Call this meeting to order at 4:15. Let me just access the file you sent me. Yeah, back up.
Item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance at a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mayor, join the meeting.
Item number 3, establishment of quorum.
René Rodríguez,
Here.
Cesar Nevares,
Here.
Ralph Duran,
Here.
Mayor Elia Garcia,
Here.
Victor Perez is absent, and Ivan Colon Villalobos.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Item number 4, public comments.
No speakers for item number 4, Mayor.
Item number 5, discussion and action on fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for all City of Socorro departments, including revenue projections for fiscal year 2020 to 2021.
Go ahead, Mr. Casiano.
Well, good afternoon. I know everybody's very excited about talking about the budget. I know I am. I'm all giddy and I got my adrenaline flowing, so it's very exciting. I'm wondering if Mayela, if you can bring up and share the document that says debt service interest and sinking fund tax rate. I'd like to start there.
We're
Does
pulling it.
everybody have it in front of them by any chance? It should have been uh, the package. Well, I'll go ahead and, well, here we go.
It's the very first
Well,
one, yeah.
okay. Perfect. That's so beautiful. I get a little misty just looking at it. And so I want to start with the very first item. It says net taxable value. And this is the estimate of what are the value of the properties that we're going to tax in the fiscal year that's coming. The number we're using is 1,120,000,000. And I would like to give it some perspective. It's a little bit more than last year's actual number, which was 1,081,000,000. So it's got a little bit of an increase built in there, but it's fairly conservative. And last year when we started budgeting at 1,033,000,000. And so we came in a little bit higher last year, and we're hoping to do the same thing this year. Now, as you see at the bottom there, it says debt service by certificate of obligation. And we do this because the very first chunk of the taxes that we levy on the property, very first chunk goes to pay our debt obligation. Right there on the bottom there, that schedule is what we're going to pay in the fiscal year that's coming up, and that's $2.2 million. Now, if you go back up to the top of it, of the schedule, it says fund balance amount available for debt service. And this is something that's new this year that we had not done before. And the reason I bring it up is because in the prior fiscal year, when we budgeted an amount based on our projections for the $10 million that we were going to borrow and how it would affect our debt service payments last year. And when we did that, we also, as you recall, we did a refinancing of some of our older debt. And so what has happened is that we've accumulated some money in the debt service fund that is above and beyond our current needs. And what I'm asking us to do is take $300,000 of that and apply it to next year's debt service. And what this does, it's in essence taking $300,000 out of the debt service fund and allowing us to use that money in the maintenance and operations. So I think this is a very positive thing. It's kind of an outgrowth of being able to manage our debt and bringing in our debt at a lower level of payments going out. And so the bottom line there then is that we're only going to need $1.9 million of the taxes that are levied to cover our debt service for this next year. Instead of the 2.2, we're going to just need 1.9 because we already have some money there. Okay? If we could go back a little bit to the schedule that says tax rate, assessed valuation, and new taxable property comparisons. I think it's one up. The other way, I'm sorry. There it is. Oh, so beautiful, isn't it? So we have basically three columns here. The one that says fiscal year 2020, no change. Basically, that's what I'm saying there is we're using the fiscal year 2020 numbers, and but there is a little bit of a change in that we're only going to use 1.9 million to go to the interest and sinking, which is also known as the debt service fund. And so, if you look at the fiscal year 2020, no change, if we don't change the tax rate, which combined it's 0.837502, we are going to generate $7.4 million for the M&O and cover the interest and sinking by 1.9 million, giving us a total tax of 9.3 million. Now, the other two columns are there. I'm not sure if you remember or not. Last year, we had a situation occur where Senate Bill 2 changed the information that we have to share with the public and how we develop our tax rates. So the first one is called fiscal year 2021, no new revenue rate. And I calculated what our tax rate would be just to generate what we generated last year. So last year we generated about 8.6 million. And in order to do that this year, based on what I'm saying our assessed valuation is, we could drop our tax rate down to 0.77290. And that's what that revenue rate is for that column. Now, we also have the opportunity to increase the tax rate. But to increase the tax rate, if we go at 3.5% or more, then that has to go back to the voters. So if we were to increase at 3.5%, we could generate $9.7 million, but we'd have to increase the tax rate to 0.866815. So now you have in front of you the information. This is kind of our starting point. And when we develop the budget for this fiscal year, we're using the current rate. And that's what we're recommending. Right there is the current rate of 0.837502. And we will be able to cover most of our maintenance costs through that. So if we could go, I think, to the next schedule. If you go one more, what does it give you?
Mr. Charlie, are you looking for the necessities list?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I wanted to go over the revenue before we went to the necessities,
Okay.
but we're missing a column. If we go back up to the very first schedule that you were showing,
The column that is.
right there, right there, right there. We're missing the column for 2021. I'm not sure how that got printed that way, but I have it in front of me, and I will use it. Just so you know, the number that was on that previous schedule that we talked about for property taxes, that's the number that's going to flow onto this schedule on the very first item, property taxes. And last year we had budgeted 6.3 million, and this year we will have budgeted 7.4 million, an increase of about $1 million just in the property taxes. Now, part of that is from the increased assessments, and part of that is from that $300,000 that we talked about coming from the debt service fund. Also to note in the revenue stream are a couple of things. We're going way up uh, from last year. We on building permits, we budgeted $300,000, but for this next fiscal year, we are going to budget at $590,000. That's the building permits again, and part of that is that we are actually billing the. We're actually paying the permit inspectors. We're paying them, but we're also billing the the developers at the same time. So it's kind of a wash, but we have to increase both the revenue side and the expense side. And we'll see that when we look at the necessities list. Overall, though, compared to prior year, we're looking at an increase of about right at $1 million. It's more like 900 and change, and we're asking to use up about $500,000, or actually for this year, we're only looking at 450,000 of prior year's revenue that we're going to try to keep at. But keep in mind that when we look at the prior year's revenue, we sometimes refer to it as the reserve. And that reserve for the city of Socorro, we have a schedule that we give you every month. And that reserve is right at about $2.5 million that we could tap into if need be. So that's kind of where we're at on the revenue side. Now, if we could go to the necessities list that the city manager had mentioned, it should be the very last schedule of these total spreadsheets. So just keep scrolling until you get to a bunch of words.
Mayor,
Mr. Rodriguez?
I have a question for Mr. Charlie.
Talk to me.
No. When do we have to make a final decision on going and finalizing the budget?
Well, there's a, let's see.
It's because I'm on the phone and I don't have my stuff in front of me, that's why. We still have time, correct?
Oh, yeah, we got till September, but it's pretty
Okay.
early.
Yes, sir, but this is our,
Okay. No.
Mr. Rodriguez, this is our second workshop. We don't have another workshop until we adopt the budget. We had a first budget workshop July 2nd.
No. That's what I was asking. When do we have to adopt what we're gonna give to the, we're not gonna adopt anything today, right?
No, we're just trying to get guidance from council on which way
Okay.
you want to all proceed. And if there's any items
Okay.
that you would like to add to the budget.
Okay, no, I was just asking. Okay, that's all.
If we could go back, it says general fund budget impact detail. There it is. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, so this schedule here is kind of a recap, a survey of what we did, and here are the items that we're talking about. The first thing is that we're recommending the same property tax rate, which we went through on that schedule. We're looking at no cost of living adjustment. And the reason we're looking at that, the SSI, the Social Security income rate of cost of living adjustment was 1.6. But what we have in policy already is a merit raise increase that is possible for each employee as they accumulate time here, and we're going to try to emphasize using that for the individual increases. Also, we have increased in this budget that we're bringing to you here, and we have an increase of 1% on the 457B plan, which is known as the deferred compensation plan. It's also our retirement plan. And what that would entail is that the city would match at 6% instead of 5%. So like me, I'm going to maximize that. I'm going to put in at least 6%, actually more like 10% for me, so that I can get the match from the city of that 6%. And the impact of that right now, based on the participation that we have, would be about $23,700. Also, what we have done is in previous years' budgeting, we've been using the same health insurance premium of about 2 years ago. And last year we had a slight decrease. And now we're looking at no increase again this year. And so we're looking at a decrease of our health insurance premiums for the entire year for about 46,000. So that's a positive impact upon us. And just so you know, this budget now fully integrates the maintenance technicians, the mechanics, and the custodial personnel that are now under the city managers. If you look at the city manager's individual budget, you will notice that that number is much increased. But the reason for that is that these individuals that are in maintenance or the mechanics and the custodial personnel are now under the city manager's budget. Now, our next topic will be the police. The police have a very nice list of items that we would like to put into the budget. We'd like to increase a dispatcher, and that would have an impact of about 42,000. We have 6 grant positions. Now, the grant positions, most of it's paid by the grant, but not all of it. And so whatever we have to match and whatever benefits we have to pay would impact the general fund budget, and that's what that $140,000 reflects. We have 6 vacant police positions in this budget, which comes up to a total of about $335,000. And in order to equip all these hopefully these new positions, we'll need tools and supplies, some training increase, uniforms increase, and that's what's right underneath. And we've also set aside in the general fund police vehicles at $450,000. Now, as we go along, the next, if we could scroll down just a little bit. Great, thank you. The Parks and Public Works, we're looking at a foreman position. We've been having a floating foreman, so to speak, and we're trying to solidify that. So if we have that foreman position, it would affect the budget at about $50,000. We're also looking at putting refrigerated air conditioning in the Public Works building, getting 2 utility trailers, getting a skid steer loader, a zero-turn mower, and all that would come up to about $94,000. And tools and supplies, we're looking at some weed eaters, updating the weed eaters because they take a beating out there, and an arc welder, which to help maintain all this equipment. And so that would affect the budget at about $23,500. Under planning and zoning, we're looking at bringing in a new planning clerk, which would affect the budget at $38,000. Office upgrades and painting and flooring of about $30,000 in that area. And then also service contract increase. Again, we talked about this on the revenue side, where we're looking at the building permits coming in at an additional 200,000. We're looking at more service contract expense on the other side, on the expense side of about 160,000, and so that impacts us as far as that is concerned. We're looking at also in the grants. We're looking at a full-time assistant at an impact of 39,000. And if you could scroll down just a little bit, we're going to do a little flip flop here in the human resources. Well, we're going to return to a director and have salary and benefits if that's our recommendation, and that would decrease our contract services by 36,000. The city clerk, well, we have set aside in the budget for the elections for next year $43,000, and we're including a part-time assistant for the information technology department, which would impact 37,000. So we're asking, our whole necessity list is 1.5 million, but some of this is just kind of massaging it into the budget. But as you saw, when we looked at the revenue, we're looking at a total budget of about 11.5 million. And again, we're only looking at about $500,000 that we need to go into the reserves for. Again,
Mayor?
the reserve.
I would like to share the screen that Mr. Charlie was missing on that spreadsheet that he first talked about. We're sharing that screen right now so you can see what he was explaining.
Mayor,
Mr. Rodriguez?
thank you. Mr. Casiano,
Yes.
on the 1% of the retirement,
Yes.
what is that amount to?
$23,700.
How much?
$23,700, increasing an increase to the budget.
23,000. Hold on, 23,000.
$700.
Okay.
We're increasing it from 5% to 6%, and we'd like to get
Okay,
it
and
8%.
and my other question was, because I don't have anything in front of me, but I just want to just reiterate, you want to move the money that we did for incurring the CEOs, correct? Was 300 what?
300,000.
300,000. Okay, you want to move that to our debt service, correct?
The other way around. I'm moving it from debt service to maintenance and operations.
Okay, debt service. Okay, because I was writing it down to maintenance and operation.
Correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I had. Okay, so if you want all I'm just to sum it up. We're looking at everything that you just said was $1.5 million.
Yes.
So that means that we would go into the reserves. We would only go into for $500,000, correct?
About $500,000. Well, you can't see the screen, but the screen is indicating that from the prior year's revenue, which is the fund balance or the reserves, we're looking at $450,000 to balance.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, at last year's revenues, correct?
Correct. At last year's tax rate, not changing the
Okay.
tax rate at all.
Mr. Casiano,
Okay.
looking at the deferred compensation, what is our participation like?
The participation is actually pretty good. Since I first got here, it was miserable, to be honest with you. But through the efforts of HR and a bunch of people, and we've been able to build that up pretty nice. And that's good because that's a good retention tool. And now that we're talking about getting up to about 8%, that's gonna cause people to reflect before they leave the city, because that's a significant benefit. It's hard sometimes to explain and get people to understand that, but it is a significant benefit, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Going back to the schedule now, if you can see the screen, it shows the 2021 column.
Mayor,
Mr. Duran has a question.
Mr. Duran?
why are we going back to a director in human resources? What happened there?
Well, it's more like what didn't happen there, and it really we felt no benefit from having a contract service, and I think we'd be better served by having a director and somebody that can actually kind of back up the city manager who really took the brunt of it, as well as Mayela who came through with that as well. But we're definitely missing a cog in the wheel there, I think. That would be my assessment.
And just to add to that is just, COVID hit and not having someone directly there guiding and really, really made us realize that we actually do need that person there. I mean, this contracting service, we really haven't heard much other than them sending reading material at 11 o'clock at night, maybe on a weekly basis, which is a disservice to our employees. So that is the reason why we're asking to go back. We tried it. It's not working out, and it doesn't seem like this COVID is leaving us anytime soon. And our employees need to have that interaction with an HR director, especially in those types of situations. Mayor? I also wanted to add that if you see the health insurance premiums, they're actually decreasing by 4.1%. So you're seeing a savings of $22,000 in that area. And I just wanted to point that out. Is there any other questions that you have?
Ms. Villalobos?
I noticed that you guys are budgeting for a clerk at planning and zoning. Is that to replace somebody, or are we adding an additional?
We're adding an additional, as you all know, the city's growing tremendously, and just the workload is unbelievable. So we are asking for another clerk just to offset the increase.
Thank you.
Following on that, Mr. Duarte, we're going from 2 to 3 clerks?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, and if you give me the opportunity, I would like to talk to council regarding these empty lots that don't get maintenance on a yearly basis. I know that staff and I have talked a little bit about implementing funding to see, to take it through the legal process and then making sure that we either contract somebody out that comes in and cleans those lots. So we talked a little bit about adding about $10,000 every year in cleaning some lots. However, the disservice of that is if we go in there and clean that lot this year, those weeds are going to grow next year. Are we setting ourselves for, because next year the same neighbors are going to be asking us to clean that lot again, not allowing us to move towards the whole city. And yes, we can place liens on these properties, but some of these properties we probably won't see any fund, any type of compensation till years later, or if any. And I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but we really never budget for anything like that. And I know that that's one of our biggest concerns and something that all council members call me on, that why haven't we cleaned this lot? And it's just sometimes property owners just abandon those properties. So I wanted to bring that up, but however, making sure that you all aware that once we do this, it might set us up and it might backfire because the weeds do continue to grow on a yearly basis.
Ms. Villalobos?
Ms. Rodarte, why don't we just use that money to do legal action against these lots?
That is what
As-
the money's gonna be used
Like
for.
hiring a whole company to just do, in bulk instead of individually? And I'm sure we can get a lot of those owners to start properly maintaining, but charge them for the fees that we had to charge.
Correct. So that's one of our challenges is that that money would be used for all the legal, because there's a lot of legalities that we would have to send out to place a lien on the properties. Some of those property owners are unresponsive. They're not gonna pay unless that property gets sold at a later date. That may take years and you might never see it. So my question to you all is, once we move forward in that direction, you know that the following year, the same neighbors are going to be calling about the same property. And how many times are you going to want to do that without moving to a different property? If that makes any sense. Right, those are the challenges that staff, we play devil's advocate with one another and just go back and forth. How can we proceed and actually make change, but are we setting up ourselves for failure at the end? Because we won't be able to keep up with all those properties.
Ms. Villalobos?
So can we create can we create some kind of an ordinance to change that? In other words, the city of Socorro, and we announce it, notify that the city of Socorro has adopted an ordinance that will give them the right to blah blah blah. And if you're a resident, or if you have lots in Socorro and have not maintained them, blah blah blah, this is what, these are the steps that the city's taking, and use it as it's necessary, because we have so many, and when it's time to do something about it.
So we already have an ordinance. We've just never allocated funding to proceed. We've always gone through the code enforcement part of it, and then it goes through municipal courts, and it's a vicious cycle, right? So my way of thinking is, okay, so obviously that isn't working out because there's people that have several warrants out for their arrest, and the property's still in the same condition it's been 5 years from now, and we just go on a vicious cycle. What can we do to make sure that, okay, we're gonna go full circle this property, but in a year, you're gonna allocate, and I'm just throwing that money out, this amount, $10,000. That'll cover, let's say, 5 properties, because we still have to pay legal to do their thing for that abatement process, place the lien, and then still hire a company that will come and clean it. So that property's taken care of, it's taken off a list. But you know that the same property is gonna be with the same problem next year, right? And that's my challenge, and that's why I'm bringing it to you all. What do you think, or how do you feel that we should proceed by doing so? Because it's just gonna be a headache, and it's going to be already expected of us because we've already done it. How
And
many times are we going to want to clean a property? And even, I'm just throwing out an idea of how we can try to make an impact, but then I'm also seeing how can that be a disadvantage in the future.
And what about looking into hiring overdue property taxes, and then maybe we can offset the cleaning of lots through that service with those funds?
Through what, ma'am? I'm sorry?
Looking into hiring an agency to collect overdue taxes, property taxes.
We already have an
We
agency
already
that
do
does that.
Mayor,
Mr. Rodriguez?
Mayor, sorry to cut you off. We already do that. And I've been trying to get a meeting with them, because my whole issue is that I'm the guilty party here, that I call in to Ms. Rodarte, and because I have a bunch of constituents to call. I'm pretty sure all of you have the same problems, we call her and we tell her, hey, what about this property and this owner and so and so. And the thing that we're facing and the thing that I've watched is that even if we go in there and we put and we find these individuals, it only lasts for 10 years on their a lien on their property for 10 years. That means that if they don't do anything, and we go out and clean it, yeah, if it costs us $1,500 to clean a lot or $3,000, it doesn't matter. It's just a lien against the property. And these properties have been there for 15, 20 years at a time, and they don't sell them. They don't do anything to these properties. So that means that after the 10 years, if we forget to put another lien on it for another additional 10 years, then all our money is gone. And if they don't sell these properties, then we won't see our money. And the issue is that once we go through this type of service, if you want to call it that, to provide that service of cleaning lots, then everybody's going to be expecting us to do it throughout the city. And therefore, it's going to put a strain on our resources, yet alone monetarily. But remember, we only have a certain amount of people in the works department. So the public works department. So that's a strain on not only on resources, but manpower. And I think that at this point, we should talk to the tax service and see which properties are, because I did check out two by myself. I found out that they haven't been paying taxes, and taxes are owed for more than 6-7 years. So if we're having this company to go out there so that they can sell these properties because the taxes are owed, I think that we should have a meeting with them and discuss this issue and move on these properties that we have a legal right to before we go out there and try to put money to clean them. I know it's something to think about. That's just my 2 cents. But I don't know what you guys think.
Ms. Villalobos?
And I'm sorry, again, I don't think my question was answered. Can we bypass all that since we've already tried it and it's not working? Can we have our attorney come up with something that is legal that we can move forward and just, get this done in a fashion that is acceptable and is not going to put a huge strain on the city financially?
Ms. Villalobos, this is Jim Martinez. The answer is, you can't bypass it. You've got a procedure for that, and you would need to follow the procedure. The procedure is the city procures the work or does the work and asserts a lien against the property for the value of that work. Now, you can always foreclose on a lien as long as it's not a homestead. So for empty lots and abandoned properties, that's certainly a possibility. Let me say this. That's certainly a possibility. But the question is always finding the owners. It's not always obvious who the current owners are. And to foreclose on a property, you have to give notice to the owners. And if you can't find the owners, then you have to publish notice, and the court appoints an ad litem to represent the unknown owners. It gets very cumbersome very quickly. So that's a long way of saying there's a defined process. You have to follow the process. If it is a homestead, if somebody's living there, that's different. It's almost impossible to foreclose on that kind of lien if it's a homestead.
Mr. Nevares?
I agree, and that in a sense has been the problem here in Socorro. Letters are sent out, notices are sent out, no responses, but yet again, these calls are nonstop. We get calls quite a bit. I'm always sending Mr. Olarte and them emails on folks complaining about fire hazard properties next to their homes and stuff like that. And that's every single year. These don't stop, guys. And we're wasting a lot of resources here by trying to locate these folks that are non-responsive. But
Ms. Villalobos?
Okay, so Mr. Jim, you have, I think you touched on it. So we have done on properties, we have done and exhausted ourselves already, aside from cleaning the property. So why can't we just move forward with the foreclosure on them? Because that's what you're telling us, that we can, and we can set I guess we can set, you know, a 3-year limit, a 2-year limit, you know, a five notification letter. I don't know. Can we do
Yes, ma'am. The answer is you can. I don't think we've gotten to that point. Adriana, have we actually gotten to the point where we performed the work or hired a contractor to perform the work and then filed the lien documents?
Mr. Martinez, we lost you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
I
sir.
can hear you.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. The answer is yes. Yes, we can do that. I don't think we've gotten to that point yet. I don't think we've actually engaged a contractor to do the work or sent city crews out anywhere to do the work, which would be, you know, the predicate step to asserting the lien and then trying to foreclose on the lien. But I think that's what the city manager is referring to. That's a budgetary issue. You need the budget. If the council wishes to pursue that, I think she's asking for a budget to do that, to do precisely that work.
Ms. Villalobos?
And I think that if we are able to do that and move forward that way, I know that we can't take the whole chunk in 1 year altogether, but let's take, you know, take some of this money and take care of the ones that are more hazardous first, and then, you know, little by little move on to the rest. I'm sure the word will start to spread really fast that finally the city's doing something to not only clean up for fire hazard or for any kind of, you know, nuisance there, but also that the city is no longer allowing, you know, that you abandon your property and not take care of it. So I think we should put a budget in and start finally doing something about these lots, vacant properties that are dilapidating.
Mr. Devon?
Who are the people that we have that we've hired already to collect all these delinquent taxes? And how much have they collected for us in the last year? And do we pay them on what they collect, or do we pay them on, you know, a yearly basis?
So they actually incorporate their fee in the owed taxes. So we don't pay them anything. They just collect the fee. It's just like your warrants, that they collect the fee to the person that owes the taxes.
So it's done through the taxing entity, or do we have a separate company that?
No, it's Linebarger, Delgado, Linebarger, Acosta.
Okay.
And we've had them for years. And I did want Mr. Charlie to talk a little bit about that. We do have owed taxes, but like this year, I mean, we're at 95, 96% of collecting most of the taxes. So you're only seeing like a 5%, and maybe that I'm a little off on that. But Mr. Casiano, can you chime in?
Sure. If you look at the total collection ratio that we have, starting at 2016, it's 101.91%. For 2017, it was 99.33%. For 2018, it was 101.64%. For 2019, it was 100.66%. And this past year, I think we got to where I think the last number we saw was like 97%. The collection rate for the city is very good. And, you know, I think for this current year, if you look at the May financial statement that we put out, it was at 97% through May. And we still have June, July, and August and September still to get to the 100%.
But council, this is Jim Martinez, if I can add, that's for property taxes. That's for, regularly assessed property taxes. But what the city manager was discussing, and I think what council was discussing was the potential liens for the cost of remediating a nuisance. Frankly, simply the cost of cleaning a lot that's overgrown. Off the top of, we have a separate contract with Linebarger for the collection of unpaid fines. That's different from property taxes. Off the top of my head, I don't remember whether liens like the ones we're talking about would be encompassed by that contract. Charlie or Adriana, do you know?
I'm not aware that they are.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I mean, maybe it could be amended, but part of the reason I don't think it is because when we entered into that contract, we weren't doing anything like that.
Jim,
that mechanism didn't exist for us.
I'm sorry, Jim, you have a really bad connection. You come in and out, so I can't I can make sense of what you're saying, but you are cutting out, so I can't hear you completely.
Yeah, you're being generous. I'm not sure that's the connection. That's just me. No, I'm because I'm up on the mountain and it goes in and out. No, what I was saying is, my belief is that contract does not encompass unpaid, unforeclosed liens like the ones we're talking about. And I think mostly it's because at the time we entered into that contract, we didn't have any. We weren't using this mechanism at all, so we didn't even think to include it.
Okay, so I think, I just wanted to start this conversation. I do feel that maybe council should come up with a number that you want us to start working. Then I can sit with Jim and Mr. Medina to make sure that we come up with a plan. And then we can bring a list of properties, or you can all think of some properties that you are interested that we can actually hit, like in every district, maybe 2 properties per district, and see the cost for that. But I do think that we should allocate funding to be able to do something different than what we're doing now, because what we're doing now, some of them, it just doesn't work because it's like a vicious cycle. And I know that that's frustrating for our code enforcers. It is frustrating for staff, for our council members, because they're the ones that are receiving these calls. Because it's like we get the call and when we start the process all over again, but there's really no, if the property owner is MIA, there's really no remedy to the situation. So I think that if you allocate some funding, we can come up with a system that might work, and you'll let us work with the attorney. But that's why I'm asking if you want to allocate some type of funding for those type of services.
I think,
Ms. Villalobos?
I think that's a great idea. And I know it's frustrating when you can't find owners, but we will be able to find, I think, at least 80% of those owners.
I agree.
Yeah, and those funds will help us for the following years for those that we can't find. So,
Do you have an amount in mind that you guys would like to allocate to the budget?
Ms. Villalobos?
do you know more or less what it would cost to clean like a 1 acre? Let's just start there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give us some examples. That way you guys can go back and present something.
So I know that Mr. Medina was asking, I don't know, Mr. Medina, are you there? He was asking, I think
Yes,
he
I'm
came
here.
up with like a $300, $500 for per acre. Is that correct? Am I recalling that?
Yes,
information?
right. So when I did my original assessment of this, we were basing it on cleaning an acre. And so again, just depending upon the complexity of the trash that's there, it could range anywhere between $500 to $700.
And that does not include the legal work that's going to go into it to make sure that we can enter the property legally We can place the lien on the property and go through all the legal, I guess, barriers. We can always look for better pricing, but that was just a range that we were, that Mike found at the time that we discussed this.
Ms. Villalobos?
I also suggest that when these lots get cleaned, they are cleaned at the end of the season, so they last longer. Instead of cleaning them at the beginning or the middle, because then that's just gonna, we know that the season ends somewhere in, I guess, October, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, and
the-
I mean, we would also like to include like the herbicide to make sure that they can spray it with something to see if it can last even longer. So we've
Okay.
talked about all of that, but if you allocate some funding, then we can come back and tell you we were able to do X amount of properties. Do know that some properties are 25 acres of land.
Wow.
It just depends.
Mayor?
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, let's just say we just put $20,000 and we'll do as much as we can. And then per acre, I don't know where those numbers came from, but I mean, I think they're extremely low. But I mean, it's great if it's $500 to $700 per acre. But yeah, I think that we should put $20,000. I don't know about you guys think, so that we can do more, and that'll include attorney's fees and whatnot, all the paperwork that comes with it too.
Ms.
What do you
Villalobos?
guys think?
I think 20 is too little. We have too many. I think we should be a little bit more aggressive. I think our budget is okay. More like a 50,000 and get, because we don't know what legal is going to cost.